similar, although he was very adamant about the benefits of sleeping rough, referring to it as a holiday, as a venture, as something that he very much chose, and he's not unfortunate in any way, shape, or form, and he refers to it as being a cheap life, an easy life. But I just want to, in making sense of this, I don't want it to make it sound that people are actually choosing homelessness, because that's not what I'm interpreting these stories as saying. The way that I'm interpreting them is the exact lack of choice that people have, that people are being made to deprioritize their housing to the point of homelessness. And that's what these stories reflect. The administrative removal, i.e. deportation of EU nationals, I had two respondents explain the process, how they experienced being deported. And Jakub, he's a very young Polish male. He explained about how he was on a bus one day, he lost his wallet, he lost all his documentation, he had no ability to verify who he was. And on top of that, he got kicked out of some digs he was staying at. So he was sleeping rough, he was with other people, they decided to steal some meat from a grocery store, and of course they got nabbed. And when they got nabbed, he got detained for deportation proceedings. What happened was they gave him basically 2 months to be able to go get his passport from the embassy, seek consular assistance, and find a job. And if he didn't do that within 2 months' time, he's going to be sent. So that was his story. Peter, his story was interesting. He got arrested for some offense. I think it was stealing, I don't remember which. But they arrested him, they detained him, and he describes the situation, the way that he understands the reason why he was being deported was because he was not claiming job seekers allowance. And the reason why they were asking if he was claiming job seeker allowance is to be able for him to demonstrate the fact that he was exercising his treaty rights as a job seeker. And if he doesn't have the ability to demonstrate that he's exercising his treaty rights, then he's subject to administrative removal. Now he thought it was very ironic that someone from the Home Office was saying you must claim job seekers, when he thought that the whole argument and the whole message that was being sent to him was that we don't want migrants here claiming benefits and job seekers and all that. We want people to be self-sufficient and being a good citizen. So he went on this kind of rant about it being communism and people haven't learning from communist situations. So he finds it quite strange, and he was in the middle of being deported because he didn't claim job seekers. Some policy implications. Right. So again, I want to reiterate, people are faced with extreme constrained choice in the current position where we are today, well, prior to noon. And so how do you respond to that? What are the normative responses that policy should take? If we look at it as, well, it's not solely a housing problem, it's a problem that lies within multiple systems, so you can't really solve it through housing policy. So if you take that position, should we look at it in a very utilitarian way by saying, okay, well, people are faced with such constrained choice. People are living on the street in order to be able to survive. You're subsisting this way by being able to maximize the wages that you are earning. And we should just let them get on with it. Or should we take a more paternalist attitude and say, no, that's not acceptable in this modern age, that people are pitching up a camp in a public park, and we should override that choice. So these are the questions I'm considering. And what about Brexit? Well, I'm sure nobody in this room has the exact answers of how Brexit will unfold, but you can only imagine that any further restriction on the ability to work will only further push people into an informal economy, greater reliance on cash in hand, and so on and so forth, and maybe even creating even more opportunities for exploitation in the labor market. Secondly, if we're going to have even greater restricted access to benefits and housing assistance, then again, you're going to push more and more people into homelessness and deprioritizing their housing in other ways. Housing conditions are going to deteriorate for this group. But again, you know, there's constitutional ambiguity as well. I mean, yesterday the Scottish Parliament got the votes that they needed in order to have Indy Ref 2 happen, so that muddies water. And then, you know, there was even a further question about devolution as well, even currently, because there is homelessness legislation in Scotland that is distinct and separate from where it is elsewhere in the UK. In Scotland, it is the most progressive, arguably in the whole of Europe. If you're homeless and you're not intentionally homeless, then you have a right to homelessness assistance in Scotland, point blank. But local authorities are interpreting it in a separate way, saying that if you are not entitled to housing benefit, which gives you the ability to pay for your social housing that's given to you through homelessness assistance, then therefore you're not entitled or eligible for homelessness assistance to begin with, which is wrong. And it was confirmed by the homelessness team leader at the Scottish government in an interview I had with her. I'm not going to read it out, but she basically said that restriction to benefit has no implication on your right to homelessness assistance. Last week, I spoke to an immigration attorney, actually for very personal reasons, because I'm subject to these changes, so I sought legal advice. But I was speaking to him about it. He's a lawyer at Thornton's Law, and he basically talked about Brexit. He's like, well, there's going to be added uncertainty for Europeans residing in the UK in terms of right of residence, and there's also going to be uncertainty for right of residence of UK nationals abroad in Europe. And obviously there will be restrictions on workers from Europe. Otherwise, there is no point of Brexit to begin with, and that will cause labor shortages, and there will be an end of free movement of people. And importantly, there are already talks about contingency planning for shutting the border, at least temporarily. And the reason why they would do that is because if you're going to select a date where people are going to be, well, the old rules apply for me now because I already live here, and then this Brexit happened, and then Europeans coming in to the UK afterwards, they're going to be subject to new rules. So if you're going to do that, you need to be able to close the border. And so they're already talking about that. So the advice that this immigration attorney gave was that you need to do some Brexit proofing if you're an EU national. So there's 3 ways that you can certify your right of residence in the UK if you're already here. You can go for full naturalization, you can go for legal permanent residency, or you can certify your right of residence either through a residence card or a registration certificate. And here are just people to go for the highest level if you're eligible to, as a sort of protection. So what about Brexit? What are the official statements coming out about Brexit? Well, Theresa May helpfully said Brexit means Brexit, so that's clear. And the First Minister of Scotland, she tried to provide a little bit more reassurance to people living in, EU nationals living in Scotland, saying that she will do basically her damnedest to ensure the rights of European nationals living in Scotland. Now, one last piece here of the puzzle is that the Home Secretary Amber Rudd, she explained that there will have to be some form of ID cards for Europeans, and I suspect it will kind of mimic the system that's already in place in terms of resident cards and registration certificates, which are not currently compulsory, but I imagine they will be made compulsory quite soon as everything tightens up. So that's me.